Welcome to EntertainGents, to our proper episode 1 of our podcast. I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Brendan.
Hello, Connor. How do you do?
Doing all right. How are you doing?
Pretty good. We did our test drive of the Terminator episode about 8 months ago now. It was September, maybe it was August, I think. But we have a new format here. We're on camera. We have some production value, and we're going to be doing A Quiet Place Part 1.
Yeah, I know we kept kind of trying to do more of like the singular podcast stuff, and it just never kind of worked out with either of our schedules, or we had one that we filmed and it just wasn't to our both of our liking. The subject matter wasn't really that great, and so I think it was good. We waited and held it off a little bit longer, so that way we could kind of do it the way that we wanted to do it.
And as much as recording over Discord worked, this is obviously much better to be able to actually talk face to face and not have that latency and such between us. So this is for sure better.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to start off with talking about just the general story.
Sure.
And sort of like, I guess, what were some of the biggest things that you kind of appreciate just about the general overall story, and maybe some of the things that the movie brings that you haven't seen in like other horror movie types?
Well, obviously the hook is just, you can't make sound. Sound is the enemy, and that's definitely what drew me in. I don't even remember first seeing the first trailer, but I know that I was like, oh, that's a cool premise. Oh, it's John Krasinski. That's cool. So it was just kind of like a mixture of both of those things, where I was like, that seems like a good idea. I like who's involved, so I didn't really expect much from it, but yeah, it was definitely. So it was for sure something that grabbed my interest.
Yeah, I actually remember. I don't remember if it was the second or third trailer, but I do remember the very first trailer was like very ominous. Like it was just kind of, it's the tub scene, so like it shows like the lights kind of like flashing and flickering a lot, and it kind of just reminded me of like Stranger Things at first. I kind of just thought it was gonna be playing off of that trope, and I really do think the premise overall kind of has the most like creative thing about it, the kind of like the breath of fresh air type to that movie. Like that's the biggest thing that it kind of innovates.
That's
because I mean, even you have movies like Bird Box and stuff that was like made like within like a year later. That is just the same.
Spawned.
Yeah,
it's like Spawn is like a subgenre almost, because there was also the Netflix movie The Silence. I don't know if you saw that. It's the exact same thing, where it's just like there are these birds that were unearthed from a cave, and they hunt with sound too. It's the exact same thing. Just with birds, not those monsters.
Because I think it's been a while. I've only saw it once, but Bird Box's premise was just that you couldn't look at them, right?
Yeah.
But it still was kind of like, just kind of felt like the same vibe.
Yeah, it definitely tried to do something different. It had Sandra Bullock, so like they did have effort behind that. That wasn't just a copycat. But yeah, that was the one where you couldn't look at them, or they will cause you to commit suicide.
Yeah. It definitely.
Which I think it's more terrifying, but it's not as good of a movie for sure.
I think it was just Netflix was in that state still where like they were trying to figure out how to make good content. Like,
yeah,
I definitely think they've made some really different movies, and they've made some really good movies. Like when I see like a good cast and it's a Netflix movie, I'm typically excited to see it. I remember that was kind of. I was really excited to see Devil All the Time. It had Robert Pattinson and Tom Holland. And so, like, for that was kind of interesting for me to see, like, Netflix doing a movie with some more newer actors. They both have been around for a little bit. They've both been in bigger budget movies, but they hadn't really done more besides that. I know Robert Pattinson had done more of those indie movies. He did The Lighthouse, which obviously was a big hit. He did Good Time and it's High Life. That's what it's called. It was definitely cool to see him take on more of like a different role, being the bad guy too in that movie. So Netflix definitely has been getting better at it, but Before we get too sidetracked, I kind of want to bring it back because I didn't ask the initial question that we had been planning to ask. What have you been watching lately? What have you been playing?
Oh boy. So I've actually kind of been editing a lot. I watched that new superhero show on Netflix, Jupiter's Legacy. It's not very good.
Really?
It's okay. I don't recommend watching it. I haven't been playing too much because of like Valorant. There's not much to talk about there. What about you?
I've been rewatching The Witcher because I'm really excited for season 2 to come out.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it before I had played the game too the first time. So now that I've played the game, rewatching it, I have a lot more like appreciation for it, definitely. And then I got Mass Effect, and I will be playing through that soon. But
yes, that's gonna be
yeah, and Resident Evil 2, which actually surprised me, is actually a little bit more fun than I was thinking I was gonna get from it. So it's a nice little surprise. But I was gonna say, it's kind of funny that Jupiter Legacy show, I kind of was thinking about like what you were saying about the Bird Box and Quiet Place and how like it kind of started its own subgenre. I really feel like since The Boys came out, that's kind of like what falls under that. Like you have Invincible, you have The Boys,
like
and you have
different take on the superhero genre.
Yeah, I kind of feel like what started it actually too was that movie that James Gunn produced.
Sucker Punch.
No, the one where it's like Superman, but if Superman was evil.
Brightburn.
Yeah,
That's it. But
I feel like I've been seeing a lot of more stuff, even if it's like more like indie or more like smaller scale. I know there's another like Amazon Prime movie that came out that was like within a year or two ago. And it was something that was kind of similar to that premise.
That's the good part of the oversaturation of the Marvel and DC movies, is people are being forced to approach this genre in a different way, and we get stuff like, I mean, The Boys was a comic book long before it was the show, but The Boys coming out really did jumpstart the different approach to superheroes.
Yeah, I definitely think this is kind of a good segue into the actual movie itself, because I know before this we were kind of talking about Quiet Place, and I really do think the biggest thing that A Quiet Place brings is more of an experience than more of like a cinematic story. How many ever times you viewed the movie? I don't know how many times you saw it. I'm assuming probably a couple of times at least.
Yeah, I think I've only seen it twice, the first movie.
Okay. What would you take out of that experience that you think is like a lot different than most of the other movies that you've seen that are like that?
I mean, the fact that when you go to the theater, you go in there with your drink and maybe your popcorn, but once the movie started, you're like, I don't want to eat, I don't want to make chewing sounds, because this movie has you so much on the edge of your seat and so anxious, hoping that they on the screen don't make a sound. It makes you also not want to make a sound. And it's that weird thing where, like, I would get stressed out just hearing someone else in the movies, like, cough or chew. I'd be like, stop. They're going to get us, stop. And I actually read, right before we recorded, that movies didn't like, or the theaters didn't like this movie because concession sales for this movie were lower, because people who were seeing it again knew that they wouldn't want to bring food or drink in with them because they wouldn't want to eat or drink.
Yeah, I think the sound design, I know you were also mentioning like how a lot of it was done like legitimately, like the dice for the game that they're playing in the beginning is actual dice and stuff like that. And I think it just really shows sort of the importance of audio, like in a good movie and everything. Like it's not just about good story, good visuals. It is also a lot about the audio and
the crew,
how ominous it can kind of make things and how scary it can bring that element in just with sound alone.
They went out of their way to be quiet on set so that they could get those genuine diegetic sounds from the props, meaning like the actual things that were making the sounds on the set is what you hear in the movie and not stuff that was put in post. And that really does add a lot. Like the first spoken line of dialogue in this movie wasn't for 38 minutes in, and I didn't think it was that long thinking about it, just because it doesn't seem like you're missing the dialogue, because there's still a lot as far as the sound design. Like, you almost have better sound design because they don't talk, which is weird.
Yeah, something kind of different I feel like this movie does is like, I know it's something in the past that me and you've talked about, like with like alien movies or monster movies, there's usually always that beginning part where it's like news headlines or like papers saying
always
like stuff
the
that
montage,
happens.
yeah,
Always
like
a
the
montage.
news and,
And there's really not that for this. It
No.
really just drops you right in. It doesn't explain anything. Even down to the end, it does not really explain what these things are, where they've come from. And I just think it is different in itself for doing that because you have so many alien movies, so many different things that you can, name, whether good or bad. And just kind of oversaturating that market. Like, it's not as impressive to make a good alien movie because it's been done in the past.
Yeah.
And it's much more easy to make a bad alien movie because so many different things have been done already.
Like
so
Super
like,
8.
Yeah, like even if you
Bad movie. Super 8's fine.
it's just mediocre.
Yeah.
It's definitely the most mediocre thing Jay has ever done.
Yeah. There's a lot of alien movies now where it's like the ET trope where it's like the kid finds an extraterrestrial of some kind that is their friend.
Yeah, I think there's really only like two things with the alien kind of genre being like there's this thing, we can't kill it, we can't do anything to it until the very end, until we find its one weakness, and then we can kill it, which I guess is a little bit like what this movie does. But I think that like we have our friends Hazen and Zion always have to complain about every single movie, and it's not bad to make an alien movie that has certain things in it. Just like it's not bad to make a superhero
an alien movie just because they come not from Earth, which we learn eventually. Like, it's not really about them. It's about the humans trying to just live.
Yeah.
Like, they have what they need in their house. It's not even them trying to survive. Like, they're just trying to find a way to live and at the same time be completely silent.
Yeah, the way I would kind of like liken it to is like early days Walking Dead, but
I
like
thought
alien.
the same thing, where it's more
Like-
about the people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's even what John Krasinski said in an interview I was watching. Was like, he's like, as weird as it sounds, it's like a love letter to my daughter because the movie's so much about family and it's so much about protecting your kids in a certain situation where it's like even more difficult. Like, a parent normally has that thought in their mind, like, how do I keep my child alive?
Yeah.
Now add the fact that there is some incredible force against you, and making any sound, could draw them in. Like, it's a terrifying thought, and I can imagine being a parent and seeing that movie being like a little bit more extra stressful, because not only do you have the thought of like yourself that you're trying to watch out for, now you have three other people, for the parents, you have 2 to 3 other people, they're preparing to have a third person.
Even trust myself to survive that situation.
Yeah.
I just think that, like, what if I have a tickle in my throat and I have to cough? Just stuff as dumb as that will get you killed in that world.
Yeah, so I think for a good structure, before I get into some of my complaints about the movie, I feel like I want to set up like the things that I liked, and so I think you should go first on like what things you really think are strongest about this movie, like the plots, story-wise, all that, and then we can kind of maybe go over into some of our complaints about the movie.
Like, when you hear about this premise, you think that would be hard to live like that, to live in near complete silence. But then as you go through the film, you see different ways they've adapted like normal things that we do into this world, like how they're rolling the dice on the fabric.
They even have different game pieces.
Yeah, how the game pieces aren't plastic so that they don't click. How they have stuff in place for the birth of their future child with the fireworks. How they have those lights so that they can tell each other if something's wrong without making sound. They can make those lights go red. And just stuff like that. How they have those like little patches of sand to step so you don't make sound when you walk. There's all kinds of stuff like that through the movie that shows that they've been in this world for a while and they understand it and they've adapted to it pretty well, or at least the best that they can.
I think like what we've talked about, definitely with the innovation of like bringing in a lot more of that sound design, kind of being like a different thing. Like, I know like there's obviously moments in movies where it's like they're trying to be super quiet and hide from the alien, but alien or monster. I don't really think there's ever been a movie though where the whole thing is around sound and having to be as quiet as possible. And so I really like how you can see how haunted John Krasinski and Emily Blunt both are about, you know, losing their child, how they're bringing another child into the world that they're in now. Like, there's obviously a lot of stress there. There's still a lot of tension between the family itself.
Which is
because
a rookie mistake.
Yeah. There's still obviously a lot of tension between the family, like between especially John Krasinski and the daughter, you know, the dad and the daughter. And so I think it's just very real in that sense, especially because, you know, they can't talk. Obviously, all they can do is sign. And so I'd imagine that's just not as expressionate of a language to use. Mm-hmm. And so how tough it would be and how like things like that would really linger, especially, you know, the death of a loved one and they're possibly being blamed there towards other family members is like really realistic to me and really, I don't know, just kind of deep, I guess. So I really like that. It's very human. It's very, very new. Like you mentioned before, like it's like 35 or some minutes into the movie that the first line of dialogue is finally said, and it doesn't feel like that at all. No. It drops so much on your plate that you're like trying to take it all in. And I feel like the visuals, the way it's shot is like really engaging. You know, like they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, how many words are video worth at that point then? So like the shots, transitions, and the unique shots. What's that?
Like 1,000,000 words.
Could be 1,000,000 words. Definitely could. I don't know math, so I'm not going to try to add that up. The unique shots go a long way, though. Definitely explaining things and definitely visual, like speaking through visuals is, I think, a strong point. Even not to give our viewers too much of a little spoiler, but for the second movie, which we've already seen and we'll be doing an episode on, I think the two things that I love the most, which is the sound design and the visuals, I think have a big improvement in the second one, which I think is just really cool. And it's really cool to see definitely John Krasinski like almost like level up in a lot of the things and know, like take feedback from people and then implement that through. Because I have some complaints about the first movie.
Is this the first movie he's directed?
No. So I don't know how many movies he directed. I know he did one called, I think it's called The Hollers or We're the Hollers.
Was that
rom-com? Not that long ago. Kinda. It's not really like.
I remember him being in a rom-com like shortly after The Office ended. I don't remember what it's called.
I don't really know if you name it a rom-com because it like there's romance elements about it, but it's mainly about his mom gets cancer and like I don't know if she gets cancer, but she has like a tumor, so they have to operate, and it's kind of just like in the worst part of his life because like he just doesn't have his life figured out yet. He's in a job that he doesn't want to be doing. He's not married to the girl that he like loves, but she's also pregnant with his kid. So like but yeah, he directed and was in that movie. I don't know if he's directed anything else, but this is, I believe, the first movie that he's directed and written, and I believe created.
Starred in.
Yeah. Well, he starred in the first one. He didn't start in, well, no, he stars in the second one too.
He's in it. He's not a star. That's future spoilers though. Yeah. We don't do that here.
He's in the trailer.
I don't watch trailers, man. No, I do.
Yeah, so I think that's it for me for about what I loved about the movie. The acting is pretty good, but I mean, it's kind of hard to rate an actor on a performance in that movie.
Really good.
Yeah, honestly. Emily Blunt is extraordinary because she acts so well without even having to have dialogue. I was gonna say it's kind of hard to judge someone's acting ability when there's no dialogue in a movie, really.
I think she's the best in this movie. Not when she's in the tub, that's good, but when she steps on that nail on the stairs, you feel that with her, and you're like, don't scream, don't scream, don't scream, don't scream, don't scream. But when she is in the tub, that's a good performance in itself. But I like the shot when she's there and you see the monster's hand as it's going up the stairs.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. They use that a lot in the promotional stuff, so they must have thought it was cool too.
Yeah, I just think it's cool. You can definitely tell how much John Krasinski took ownership over this whole thing. I don't actually know for sure because I I'm pretty sure he got the script, so I don't know if he created the idea.
Yeah, the screenplay writers came to him and said, "Do you want to do this movie with us?" Like, so it's not his original idea, but he definitely put a lot into the development of the finished movie.
Yeah, well, I know even like you were talking about, like he's in the motion capture suit for the monster in the first one, which I think is kind of cool. Like it just shows that he really...
That has to be like him saying that he wanted to do it. Like there's no way they couldn't find someone to come in and pretend to be the monster who actually like knew, like someone not Andy Serkis, but someone like that who like specializes in motion capture.
I think people just like it. It's just kind of a funny thing, I think, because it's like
if you told me, do you want to dress up in this suit and pretend to be this monster, I'd be like, oh yeah.
Well, I mean, there's like the Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn's cousin, Sean Gunn.
Yeah,
because he's like in those movies as the like co-captain to Yondu.
What's his name?
I don't know what it is in Guardians. I know his name's Sean Gunn.
He has a name, and I knew it.
But he's the motion capture guy for Rocket too.
He's also the big mouse in the Suicide Squad.
Yeah. Well, because he always has Nathan Fillion. He always has Michael Rooker, which is Yondu, and Sean Gunn in each one of his movies, even if they're in a cameo.
It's just like how JJ has that one guy from Lost.
Yeah.
Sorry. Heroes, not Lost. Heroes.
He's in Lost though, which came out before Heroes.
You're right. That's why I thought that.
Yep. It's funny how directors have friends like that'll be in that, because I know like we've always talked about doing stuff like with Hazen or different things like that, where we just have Hazen be in every one of our movies as like a cameo.
Like he's like this the Stan Lee.
I think. I mean, obviously Emily Blunt is like kind of on a different plane, not really as much anymore, but definitely was on a bigger plane of like stardom than John Krasinski.
Definitely,
and I definitely think she's a better
Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah, I definitely think has better acting ability. Not that John Krasinski is a bad actor by any means.
Wait, she's not in Looper. That's Brie Larson, right?
Looper?
Yeah,
she's in Looper.
All right, I think she looks just like Brie Larson. I get them mixed up a lot.
They don't really look that much.
they're
both blonde.
They're both kind of blonde. I don't know.
That's about it.
Sorry, well, that's just, but you know that
we're gonna get canceled on our first episode.
You know what? Okay, to even that out, I also get Matt Damon and Leonardo DiCaprio mixed up, which made watching The Departed very confusing for me.
But, you know who actually, like, most people don't get those two actors confused, but most people get Mark Wahlberg and Matt Damon confused, which
I can see that, yeah.
I don't all three of them are in the movie.
No, I know Mark is the Transformers guy, and I'm not gonna get him mixed up.
Well, I definitely think that Emily Blunt is like a higher level, and not as much anymore, because I think he's just done so much, especially in the recent years. You know, the Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan show.
Not Jack Reacher.
Yeah, I was about to say Jack Reacher. Jack Ryan, and being in this movie and directing it and all that, and these two movies now, I think have really bumped him up a peg. Obviously, too, just being who he was in The Office has made him a comedy icon as well, but it's definitely cool to see him finally go after kind of what he's wanted, which I think was, like, he's obviously always had a passion for comedy, but
yeah,
I think he's just lived that out now being in The Office.
Cool, like, now that he can just do what he wants because he was in The Office. I
definitely think it's cool to see him, and like, there's very few people that left The Office and are doing better now after it. You know, there's a lot of people like Rainn Wilson.
I don't know if there's besides the obvious one, Steve Carell. I don't know if there's really anyone who you really see on a consistent basis at all.
No, I know Jenna Fisher's like still kind of like in stuff here and there, but most of them aren't.
But
like, most of them aren't
that's
doing.
Not even really speaking to their skills, because it might just be like when you were on The Office. I don't think you are really worrying about money, so it might just be kind of hanging out. Like a whole bunch of them, they're at Comic-Con every year. I've met a few of the cast members of The Office.
Yeah. I feel like Steve Carell is probably in a state now where like he's just does what he wants when he wants, because like he was already a pretty big star even before The Office came around.
He hasn't done that much since.
No, but I mean, think about it. He was Brick in Anchorman. He was in the 40-Year-Old Virgin. Like, He was in all those movies
Get Smart was
before.
The Office was over too, right?
Yes, he was in a lot of movies while The Office was going on.
Yeah.
And I think no matter what, Office or not, I'm pretty sure Steve Carell would have went on to still be a big name regardless. I just think he's already been in too many like bigger movies for him not. Even Paul Rudd, I'd say like Paul Rudd was always known, but not really bigger until recent years.
Yeah.
And I think it probably would have been similar for him. Like he probably would have always been kind of known, but not gotten bigger until later. I think The Office definitely was a leg up for him, but
it's a little bit frustrating that he left The Office. He said to do movies, that he didn't do that many movies, and now he's on a show again on Space Force, and that show sucks.
yeah,
And he left The Office, and then that made that show suck.
definitely
Still frustrating, but besides the point.
should have just ended though. Season
Yeah.
7 was definitely a high point, but
It could've
it's
been-
definitely nice to see John Krasinski being probably the top person after The Office to still be doing stuff and still be
Rainn
doing like,
Wilson's
even
done
better.
a few things. He was in The Meg, that shark movie from 2-3 years ago now. He was in one of the newest Transformers movies. I think that was after The Office. He was an instructor at a college or something.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, he hasn't done that much either.
that wasn't after because that was the second one.
Really? Was that soon? I thought it was like 4 or 5. Jeez.
Because I remember that part now.
So that was 2009 then.
Yeah.
Legends
He was
Fallen.
doing stuff a lot during The Office. I don't think he's doing a lot now. Because he was in a few movies. I feel bad for him. I don't think he ever took off. I don't think he would have taken off without.
He has like a website or like an organization now. I forget what it does exactly, but he's still like doing things. He's just not. I don't know if he's trying that hard as far as being an actor at the moment.
Yeah, I think financially they're probably all doing pretty well,
Oh, for
especially
sure.
with Netflix. Like, I mean, he probably already made a good. I mean, show was big enough for them to go on 9 seasons on live cable
I mean,
TV.
there's more characters obviously, but like Friends, they were all being paid $1 million an episode at the end of that show's run, so I'm sure that they're all fine.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, it's just cool. John Krasinski still seems like a down-to-earth guy, definitely, but seems really passionate about his work. So I'm excited to see what else he'll do, and I'm sure there'll be a Quiet Place 3. Not to get into spoilers too much,
Yeah.
but I'm sure there will be. So I'm just excited to see where the series will
Yeah.
go and just continue to see his directing work and writing work, because I know obviously I think he's a lot more passionate about that. I think he also does work for the Jack Ryan show, so I'm excited for whenever they get around to season 3 for that show. But I want to get into complaints of the movie, some of the things that we
Sure.
didn't really like. So if you want to lead that off again, go ahead.
I'll do the one that we're both thinking, in that we both think that it was very unnecessary for John Krasinski's character to have to sacrifice himself to save his kids. He obviously screams when they're hiding in the truck and when the monsters is trying to get at them, because he could have, thrown something, or like a firecracker, or I don't know, take off your pants and throw your pants. There's
Literally anything.
a lot he could have done that wasn't him screaming and then just standing still. It was
Right.
a powerful moment once you actually think about it. Like maybe in the moment, you have all that adrenaline and you're just thinking, I have to save my kids. So it's not like a huge sin where I can see that maybe being like your brain can't think of a plan B, so it's just like save them.
Right.
So yeah, that's my main complaint. I can probably think of a few more, but I think that'd be kind of nitpicky, but I'm sure you might have stuff to say. So what are some of your complaints?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I want to kind of respond to what you said because I agree with it definitely. I think the biggest thing is they got so complex with the sound design. Not the sound design, but I guess like the ideas with what they would do with the sound. Like obviously like the firework display like we were talking about before. Like when I was in the theater I was like, that's really cool. That's really smart, really cool. I really liked that because it's like you would think like, how are you going to cover this up? How are you going to make like what they basically say in the movie, like when he's at the waterfall, is like if there's a louder sound around you, how are they going to hear,
Yeah.
casual conversation? So my thought immediately was like, that's really smart. Like, they even foreshadowed it earlier on in the movie, so they have this loud firework display.
I
So
forgot
then
about that part of like, why not just live at the waterfall? I remember at the time that was a thing that I thought.
yeah,
too.
so there's some little things there with that I'm just kind of like, why? And again, not to get in spoiler territories, but the second movie does kind of fix some of those things that I had complaints with. There's certain things in it that it kind of does better, I would say.
Yeah.
But I just think, like, I understand where he's coming from. He did not want to be in the second movie. He didn't want to do it again because from what I've seen, from what I've read, it was just absolute hell for him to be in the movie, directing the movie, writing the movie, and just doing all of that. It was a lot of work. And I can understand it's already a lot of work to be the director of a movie, let alone also be worrying about like your acting and all that stuff, and also being the one that, like, he was probably holding himself accountable because who else is gonna tell him that he's doing a bad job when you're everyone's boss.
But he did good, I think. Like
Definitely.
He was a good scared looking actor.
I definitely think acting wise that was probably his best performance, was probably that movie. Again, like, I've not seen him in anything where I was like, wow, it's really, really great acting. I always just think he's like, yeah, he's good.
Until this, yeah.
I'd even say after, like, you're having someone like Leonardo DiCaprio compared to him. I'd say Leonardo DiCaprio is great, whereas he's like good. He's not bad by any means. He's still very good, and still very good compared to the average person, obviously.
This was a different kind of acting, though, where like he wasn't really trying to sell what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to convey what he was thinking through his expressions, through his actions.
I think that just goes even further, though. Like I agree with that, but I think it also goes to, like, his performance wasn't going to be the top one, just like his character isn't the top one. It doesn't really matter about his character because it's not his character's story. Because the whole subject is around the kids, obviously. That's the biggest piece. Even, that's what it is.
The ones
but
that are left.
It definitely still could have been done in a better way. I think it should have been done just in a different way. And I get, like, he wanted it to be this big, like, dramatic thing. He wanted it to be this big, like, kind of like dramatic emotional piece, I guess. And so he did it in a good way as far as that, but just in every other logical way, it wasn't really that good, because it's like, great, you saved them now. What are they going to do after this, though? Because that thing is still here. Yeah. What is your wife who just had a baby going to do now that you're dead? So, like,
I guess he didn't know about the thing with hearing aid, or
no,
I forget what you call that. It's not what that is exactly, but.
And so I think it would have been better to have shown him maybe right as they're figuring out about the hearing aid thing, like him going out and fighting all of them or doing something like that, and he dies accidentally, gets hit by one of them. I just think there would have been a lot of better ways of doing it, and that's really my one nitpicky thing. Like you said, they could have had like a firecracker, even playing on the, like, fireworks trope. Like, I'm sure there was a fireworks store somewhere around that they could have gone to, gotten some stuff, had some firecrackers, thrown one, different little sound things they could have done.
Right.
Even in the second one, which we'll talk about later, there's parts again where they have other little sound things to, like, trick them and do stuff. So he's definitely learned a lot. I'm sure people probably complained about that, and he probably read, comments online, saw different things, and so probably thought, yeah, that probably would have been a good idea. Like, I'm not harping on him. I'm sure if I was in his seat, I probably would have had lots of little things I didn't think of, and I'm still wanting to acknowledge the good things that were in the movie, and like not harp too much on the things that I'm like, well, you could have done this, and this, So I guess that's probably my biggest nitpicky thing, is I don't, like what you said, I don't think he needed to die, and I don't think they needed to be quiet in every single moment.
They had that
there could have been
room
more
in their basement, right, that they had kind of soundproofed, with the mattress or the.
And even if so, like, why would you not be wanting to soundproof more then, or finding areas where you could all talk to each other?
Like,
and
somewhere in that world is an Amazon warehouse full of those soundproof foam panels. Just go find that.
Yeah.
And make a house out of it. I don't know. Yeah, that's something that's touched more upon in part 2
of
places that are more soundproof and stuff.
Yeah. So I definitely do think overall the story is good. I definitely like how it doesn't focus too much on the alien part of it. It's more just family side of it.
Do the monsters even have like a name that they call them?
No.
I don't recall one.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Because even like on his board in his basement, he says like how many are there? Like they don't have the name. Because it would happen so fast. Like you're not talking, so you're not really gonna have time to like, call them something or hear someone else call them something.
Well, realistically too, like the interesting thing I know we've talked about even before the second one came out is like it's not been that long. It's only been like over a year since it's happened. So like realistically, like the world is not too gone. I mean, they have electricity still.
3 months or something like that.
They have, all that stuff. They have the capabilities still of reclaiming the world. So that's why it's just so interesting to see like they found the weakness to the thing, and we'll talk about it more in part 2. But like there's still very much potential for them to come back, which in my knowledge has never happened really in like a zombie apocalypse alien type movie. It's always just like the world's ruined, that's just how it is, live with it. So I think it'd be really interesting to see this movie series kind of go an opposite way and really show how they can reclaim the world and truly like make it a better place.
Yeah, which again, without spoiling part 2, I feel like a part 3 could happen where that's kind of what it is, like more retaking the world on a larger scale.
Yeah. So
I don't know if there's much.
I feel
much
like
more I have to say about part 1. I think we're going to continue this conversation in part 2. I'm sure we'll.
Yeah, I definitely think like one more thing I think we could touch on definitely is just some of the behind the scene things. I definitely think like we were touching on before with the sound, like they're very to the T, like very want to be legitimate with everything. And so like I think it's really cool
Which
that
you can feel like it all feels very tactile, all the sounds and everything.
Yeah, the sound design is like unlike any other movie I've seen before. It's very, very good. I think it's cool even down to like the smallest little things. Like most movies wouldn't even worry about this at all, but like the daughter, I can't remember her name because I don't think Reagan. So Reagan is deaf in the movie, obviously, and that's a whole big plot point, is that like her hearing aid later on ends up being, that frequency so like deafening to the aliens that it ends up hurting them because their hearing is so sensitive, obviously. But I just think it's cool that like in real life she's also actually deaf and actually uses sign languages to communicate, and that they all actually learn sign language and were like actually signing in the movie. And I know you were talking about before how they didn't even want to have captions on it and just only have signing be in the movie and not like only have like really like it wasn't like one word of dialogue or like something like that, very small amount of dialogue.
Yeah, they the original screenplay had one line of dialogue in the entire script, and it was all communicated through signs that were not going to be subtitled in the movie.
Yeah. So I think they did it in a very legitimate way, and I just think it was really cool that, John Krasinski was so passionate about this project that he was working on that he wanted it to be as real as possible and be like realistic to what a family member would actually do, so far as to showing a dad actually like truly like, hey, I'm gonna die here, but my kids will live on, and they'll sort of I'll live on through them, sort of deal,
which we also see more of in part 2.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, it's a great movie. I'm excited to see what John Krasinski will do. We'll talk more about what I thought about
Ryan season 3.
Yeah, Jack Ryan season 3 will probably be next. That and Quiet Place 3, I'd imagine, unless he has something new in the books. Either way, I'll be there. I'll pay to see it, whatever needs to be done. So yeah, I'm excited. That was my thoughts on Quiet Place.
Yep, from April 2018.
Yeah, day one.
Day one.
So,
all right, Connor.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Sounds good. Thanks everyone for watching.